All right, we're going live. What bill do we need to do first, Philip? 696.
Senate Bill 696 is the loan assistance repayment program for the nursing workers. You should have a reprint on your desks. The changes from the last time you saw, worked with Senator Eckert and Griffith. The bill changes in the reprint dated 3/18 on your desks. We're striking the definition of primary care because that is mostly related to things that physicians do instead of nurses. Concomitant changes are made throughout the bill whenever there's references to primary care. So on page 5, we make those changes. Also on page 5, line 19,
Did you
instead
say
of
comment?
concomitant.
Concomitant. Thank you for sharing that.
Also on page 5, line 19, the reference to medical specialty is changed to just specialty. And also it's added in or in a setting so that the department may designate practice in a specialty or in a setting where there's a shortage. Conforming changes are also made to the reporting provisions, and then also on the funding on pages 8 and 9, references to primary care are also stricken. And then the same changes you looked at before regarding the clarifying of the funding is there. And then we've also flagged this to follow up regarding the money in the budget.
Senator Eckert? You don't have to touch it.
Don't
You're,
touch
you're
it.
good.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Philip and Senator Griffith, actually Senator Bidle, and everybody who've worked on this. I think we have, and some outside folks who were helping us with the technical aspects. But I think we've got something that's very workable, and I think we can move it along. So,
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
leave it alone, right?
Where's that? Maker's mark, makerspace? Okay, who's got that?
That's me.
Okay. 453.
Thanks.
453.
Where did I put it? So, it is mine, but I don't know where I put my folder. 453 is a bill establishing, there it is. It's out of finance, you guys are secondary, they voted favorable on this one. Let me check the vote sheet. It was unanimous. What the bill does is it's an economic development program by establishing the Maryland Makerspace Initiative Program within TEDCO and encouraging expansion and establishment of makerspaces throughout Maryland. And then TEDCO may partner with an Open Work Center for Advanced Fabrication Technologies in Baltimore City. And it comes with a $1 million annual budget mandate for each of fiscal years 2024 through 2028.
General funds?
Yes. Well, wait, hold on. Yeah. Yep, general fund expenditures increased by $1 million annually. Special fund revenues and expenditures for it in TEDCO increased correspondingly.
Okay, evidently Senator McCray likes this.
Yeah, and we actually voted it out last year, not the same fiscal impact, but worked with the House during the interim, Eric Lukey, which his committee is going to go through Ways and Means to figure out what was the House's challenges with it. So we worked through that.
Awesome. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Another winner. What's this one, 454? Senator
554?
sorry, yeah, 5.
Okay. So this one, you have a reprint on your desk. Finance voted this one with amendments.
This is the one we added to?
I'm sorry, what?
This isn't the one we added to?
No,
Okay.
nope, those are all on the floor.
No, the Patterson, that program?
Yeah, that's Senate Bill 744, which is on the floor. So it'll be a floor amendment to do that. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It's still not this one. It was 728 or 9 or something out of finance.
So 744 is the Hedelman bill that
Correct.
we're doing the,
Yeah.
Yes.
This bill is not being used as the vehicle for
got it.
the grant that you're talking about. Okay. Coded discussion there. Senate Bill 554, you have a reprint on your desk. I did mark it up because it's kind of lengthy. It establishes a program, two things actually, a program and a grant. So first it establishes a microloan program, which is to provide loans to covered individuals, which is a defined term later on in the bill. On page hand numbered 5, it talks about well, let me tell you who the covered individuals are first, so you have that context. That definition of covered individual is on page 8. So that's an individual who has been convicted and completed their imprisonment and is approved for release and meets some eligibility requirements set forth in some federal law for a federal microloan program. So these are basically new release individuals. So under the microloan program, they would be eligible if they're referred by an organization dealing with entrepreneurial development. They can then apply for a loan. They do not have to put up collateral for the loan. The loan limit is $50,000, hence the microloan terminology. And it establishes a special fund for purposes of funding these microloans. And on page 6, you can see the contents of it, the uses of it. It caps administrative uses at 10% of it. The rest would be for the loans. It does have a required funding of, but it doesn't state a dollar amount, so it's really not a mandate. I will note that in the Senate fence list, there's $175,000 for Commerce just to kind of get their end up and running. Then turning to page 8, the final part about the microloan is a report. And then on page 9, this is the second part of the bill where it establishes a grant program. This is grants for organizations to assist these covered individuals. Sets out a purpose of the grants, the grant application procedures, all on page 9. Page 10 sets out criteria. There is a 25% match requirement for these organizations. Again, a 10% cap on using them for administrative costs. Reporting requirements for the organization from page 10 to 11, and then finally report by Commerce. Those were the bills. This was voted 10-1 in finance. Senator Reedy.
What was the price again?
So there is no price.
But there's no suggested price.
There's no suggested price. The fiscal note indicates expenditures would increase in by $175,000, which is what is currently in the Senate fence plan, and then $700,000 annually for 24 through 28. The reasoning for that is for 3 additional, basically to administer the program, 3 regular employees, right. And then to whatever the extent that the governor chooses to fund the program, obviously it would be that amount as well.
Okay, Senator McCray?
I was able to talk with Jazz Lewis over the interim in reference to this. This is pretty much modeled off of a federal program that currently exists, and trying to, as we have this conversation around public safety, obviously, instead of folks working for people, may not be able to get the job opportunities or things that's prohibiting them from getting the job opportunities, this is where they can start a business, for the most part.
Gotcha. Okay, we're second on this, so. Is there a motion?
Favorable. Second.
All those in favor? Okay. No, it's gotta go over there. Right? Okay. Maintenance staff are gonna be easy?
No.
Yes,
We can try.
we can try.
What's the number?
Okay. I have one more out of finance if you want to do
Okay, yeah,
that one
let's
first.
get it done, yeah.
Senate Bill 782, again, you have a reprint in front of your desk. This is the one, it establishes a work group to look at post-COVID-19 crisis economic transition. It's approximately a little over 20 members in terms of the work group membership. You can see an amendment where 5 were added by finance. Page 2 of the reprint is the list of things that the work group needs to study. It would be staffed by the Department of Legislative Services, and it authorizes them to retain some services, contracting services with the University of Maryland, and it shall be $500,000 available for that purpose. It's a 2-year study with an interim report and a final report, and then it would sunset.
Doesn't cost us anything?
Well, there's a required $500,000 for purposes of being able to retain services of the University of Maryland.
Okay. Finance is primary. Is there a motion?
Favorable.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Favorable with amendment, just for the record.
Okay. We're going along. We're doing fine.
Okay.
Is that the end of the, the primaries?
That's all I had.
Looks like it.
Okay, and my MOE bill is in the office. So-
Can we do Senate Bill 9 while we wait?
Senate Bill 9. Who's got that?
I have that.
Well,
Senate Bill 9 is a procurement bill. As introduced, it would have established a process whereby certain federal certifications would be required to automatically be accepted for Maryland MBE certification. The testimony that's submitted raised some questions as to whether there was a potential constitutional issue with that, and then also whether that process would potentially disadvantage Maryland businesses versus out-of-state businesses. You have a reprint at your desk from amendments proposed by Senator Griffith, which would turn the bill into, would strike the bill as introduced, and it would first create a study by the certification agency to review options to allow other state and federal certifications to be accepted as satisfying a requirement for certification in the MBE process. And then also recommendations to streamline and improve the process for certification that do not disadvantage Maryland businesses. The second piece of the bill is, if you go to the end of the bill, some additional language related to, there's a list of entities that are required to provide information within 60 days of a request by the certification agency for any info they deem necessary to assess the need for remedial measures, and then also requirements that entities, those entities should require their licensees, applicants, grantees, and other program participants to provide information on request as well.
Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, you all may remember, it was introduced actually last year as one of the bills from the work group on equity and inclusion that Senators Elfreth, Eckert, and I and others sat on. This was one of the original recommendations, and because of the concerns raised by I think it was MDOT and others about the constitutionality of the bill. There was work done during the interim. It was reintroduced this year, but we still didn't address their concerns. Since that time, working with the sponsor, these amendments will allow the agency to do a study of this process. This issue also came up in that MBE evaluation and was in a bill that I introduced that has already passed this body, but we amended out anything related to certification from the bill for the same reason. So since we keep running into that roadblock as it pertains to impacting MDE certification, we thought it made sense to slow down, study that issue, and then the second part of the bill, as Philip described, deals with the disparity studies. As you know, new programs are developed. The state is asked to do a disparity study to determine whether or not there can be specific issues pertaining to minority participation. And they've had some difficulty doing those studies in a timely fashion and getting the information back. So the second amendment deals with that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd move favorable on the Senate Bill 9 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
And on this one, I would love to be a co-sponsor if I could.
Not only that, you're gonna take it to the floor.
I was afraid of that.
Anybody else?
Sure.
Yeah, what the heck?
Is,
It's a
hold
good
on.
bill.
Is that everybody or not? Everybody, okay.
Are you, I don't think so. All right, let's hear about MOE, if you're ready, Erica, if you dare.
Sure, and I think you guys have the materials on your decks, including a couple of handouts.
It's the bill number.
Senate Bill 640. So you should have a reprint and 2 exhibits. Over there.
Looks simple. Just a bunch of numbers.
It is just a bunch of numbers. Okay, so
Welcome to budget and tax.
all right, so, yes, the bill has a bunch of numbers. Those bunch of numbers indicate the required amount of county governing body funds that need to be appropriated to the local schools for fiscal 2023. What those bunch of numbers indicates is two branches of calculations. And instead of trying to draft some complicated language of math, the thought was to just do the math, put the numbers here. So these 2 charts indicate what is going on. So if we first look at one that's labeled as Exhibit 17. So the maintenance of effort calculations that came in earlier during session for the past 2 months, DLS has been in discussions with MSDE over what DLS, we characterize as errors and not accurate interpretation of the statute, certainly not as the General Assembly intended. So a couple of, I don't know if you want me to go over that. This bill embedded in these calculations is correcting those calculations to what the General Assembly intended when the maintenance of effort law was passed last year in order to deal with pandemic enrollment issues. So what Exhibit 17 is kind of showing you what those errors were and what the difference in the dollar amount is in the counties that were affected. So what the basic effect was is, if you recall, there was what we call a maintenance of effort escalator, which is if counties were putting in kind of below the statewide average of local effort, that the law required them to increase their per pupil amount. MSD in their calculations applied that escalator twice for some reason, as opposed to once. So what that did, unfortunately, is put out there in the ether a higher county appropriation than what the law actually was intended to require. This bill fixes that. The bill also, the calculations also, honestly, we can't even wrap our heads around this one. In terms of choosing whether to apply the escalator, they made a determination that a 0% change is an adjustment, and so they made an adjustment. And you can see that affected 2 counties. Again, giving the school systems the false impression that they'd be getting more money than what the actual law required. So so part of that fix is embedded into these numbers. The second part of what the bill did, this is looking at the second handout labeled Draft Exhibit 1. As the bill was introduced, again, for another pandemic enrollment year, the bill required that what needed to be provided was the amount under current law, which this bill is fixing, or the county's fiscal year 2022 local appropriation, whichever was higher, again, counteracting any pandemic enrollment impacts. Those 2 mathematical functions together equal the numbers that are in this bill. So the result of this bill is fixing the MOE calculations to what you all intended, and also adjusting for pandemic enrollment decreases, and holding the schools harmless for those decreases. So that's the bill. Maybe I simplified that.
That was simple. Yes? Sarah?
Thank you very much. As I think this does correct what went out initially and set a panic with many of our local school systems on the Eastern Shore. So I appreciate the work on this to get it clarified. Thank you.
I just want to be crystal clear, though. By MSD applying the escalator twice, that led to an inaccuracy of the school systems thinking they were going to get more than they thought. So by fixing that, they're going to get less, but they're going to get what current law actually required. And those dollar amounts are on this Exhibit 17. If you look at, and we can look at Allegheny County, MSD calculated $31.7 million to go to the schools. The proper calculation was $31.4 million.
So MSDE was wrong.
Correct.
So Allegheny is going to lose 283,000?
Under fixing current law, yes.
Yes,
But
right. I
then
mean, they
once-
got overpaid, right? Or did they actually get the payment?
No, not at all. This
Not
is
at
just
all. This is
nope.
just all,
This is all just what's
pre-
supposed to happen in 2023.
right.
Yep.
Just a
So-
quick question.
I'm sorry.
But if you overlay on top of that, this is why it's 2 things happening at once. Exhibit 1, the draft for Allegheny County. The schools are actually going to get $31.9 million, which is a little bit more because of the pandemic adjustment. So the net gain between the 2 is the county schools will get more.
Okay, so,
Can you explain that, so that people will understand it?
Honestly, I did it as simple as possible, unfortunately.
didn't you say this was easy?
It was when I started.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And it was way more complicated until this little brainstorm happened.
Mr.
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand this in a very simple way, because I'm looking at 2 different charts, one of which has 10 or 12 jurisdictions on it, and the other one.
Yep.
And so basically, if I understand correctly, the 2 things that it's working on is, one is the amount of maintenance of effort that a local jurisdiction is expected to, is,
That's the end result.
okay.
To get to the end result, we had to, 1, fix calculation errors, which is the portrait one, as well as then apply the original intent of the bill, which is hold harmless for the school systems with pandemic enrollment. unfortunately, there's puts and takes and netting out and all that kind of stuff happening.
Right.
So Exhibit 17 only reflects those where there are changes from the original.
Exhibit 17 only reflects the counties that were impacted by the errors made by MSDE.
I got that, I think. I understand it, sort of.
Okay, so everyone, so in the Allegheny instance, you pointed out that at the end of the day, they're actually getting a couple $100,000 more.
They being the school system, correct?
Yes. Correct, right?
Correct.
But then if you look at Garrett, although they are not at 28.8 or 28.3, they're 28.7. So they're a little less than what the mistake was, but more than what DLS said.
More than what DLS said in terms of the initial calculation, because then you have to overlay on top of that the actual bill as it was introduced.
Right, and the bill provides the calculation to accommodate for the pandemic.
Yes.
I get it, believe it or not. Senator Alfred?
I have not heard from my local on this, and Anne Arundel is not in Exhibit 17, and neither is Prince George's County. Does that mean we are not affected? If you're not listed in 17, you're not affected?
No, if you're not listed in 17, it means the errors that were made did not impact those counties. But you're still impacted by the bill as introduced to deal with the pandemic.
If you're not on the chart, you're definitely getting more.
Yes.
Not,
No.
no.
My
Why
number goes
would,
down.
some people aren't getting more? I thought this was all to accommodate for,
Let me think about that. I think that's right. I think that's right. It's the degree to which, how much more
that's right.
is impacted by the error.
So increase the local minimum effort, that means the more money our locals will have to put in based on the bill than they had originally anticipated.
Yes.
Okay, so in this case, Anne Arundel has to find 10.3 million more than they were originally calculating for.
Because of the bill. Yep. I believe that's correct. Yes, current law versus under the bill.
Which I need to obviously talk to my local about.
Yes, I mean, this is of serious consequence. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to, because,
And with mine,
yeah,
the this is what, when our superintendent saw this, they said, what's going on? We just are not able to give a COLA or anything to our locals with this. And I went back and actually talked with Senator King and then Rachel, and Rachel told me there was a mistake and I should take the higher of the two numbers that was in the original bill. That's what I was told, that's what I communicated, but this still cuts them short. So there's a great disparity, feedback that I'm getting from our locals. And they said it really renders them in an awkward position even to go to the county.
okay, so we need to talk about this as the system or the county government. Because if you don't, you just say local, it adds this confusion to this,
Okay,
right? Think about it that way, as we continue to have a conversation here.
thank you.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you. Erica, I'm gonna need some help. I have 3 counties, right? So I'm looking at Exhibit 1, which shows, I'm sorry, let's start with Exhibit 17. None of my 3 counties are on Exhibit 17.
Okay.
But if I look at Exhibit 1, I have 3 counties, all 3 counties are on there. Calvert, 2.1 at the end for increase in local minimum effort. Charles County, 7.1, and then Prince George is at 0. So does that mean that Calvert and Charles County are going to be expected to come up with
Yes.
those funds, 2.1 and 7.1?
Yep, because the other thing, remember, that's going on behind these numbers too, is with the passage of the blueprint, the counties are now required, the county governments are now required to also pay for, they used to only be responsible for their share of the foundation program. Under the blueprint, we've added about 6 or 7 other formulas, like for English second language, or compulsory education, as also requiring the local governments to cover their local share. So even without errors, even without this bill, there is likely to be increases because just what they had to pay for increased.
Okay. All right.
So that was, so that last column
Yep,
on chart number 1, exhibit 1, is what the county government is going to have to increase. Now, is that the full load of maintenance of effort, or is that just above some other number?
so they always have to pay, well, okay. It's always gonna be the greater of. So you have the local share, and then you have maintenance of effort, okay? A county government can never fund less than the local share. If historically a county government has paid more, that then turns into a maintenance of effort amount. So whichever one is controlling, depending on how a county government has chosen to historically fund
Right.
their education funding, would dictate which one controls.
So, again, is, like, a lot of these on the very last column are zeros.
Right.
Does that mean they need to do nothing as a county government?
That would mean that there, because the bill is introduced, was either current law local appropriation for '23 or what they did in '22. So then it's comparing 2 years and picking the greater of those. So if it's 0 here, fiscal '23 is greater than 2022. I think, hold on, should be.
Okay.
Right, because the bill isn't impacting them, because their 2023 would have been greater than 2022 only. So
And
those
so
that
the
have.
break that they're getting is that we're looking back to '22.
I'm not sure I'd call it a break. It's the hold harmless for the school system to get the greatest of '22 or '23,
Is it a hold harmless for the school system or
Yes.
for the county?
for the school system.
But, yeah.
Rachel I'm texting with Rachel. She says basically the amounts in the amendment reflect what the legislature intended last year.
Right, that's the error that I went through. Yep,
Plus the higher amount for some counties based on the original bill. And the original bill, the idea of it was that because of the fact that so many school populations had dropped off with so many people going off to private schools and such, we didn't want to change any formulas or do anything until we see who's coming back and what the real numbers are going to be, rather than cutting funding now because of lower numbers and then having more kids coming back in September and being caught short-funded.
Yep. No, I get the logic, but I'm trying to get to what is the absolute number.
Yeah,
So in the case of, any of them, pick it. In Montgomery County, there's $31 million. 31
Yes.
million? Yes, $31 million. Is that their maintenance of effort for the year, 23, or is it in addition to what?
it's in addition.
Okay, this is what people are gonna
Yep.
wanna hear.
Yep,
We need a chart that shows what the full cost for the systems are.
that's what this is, I thought. Is that not?
I
So
thought you
what this
said it-
is the full cost, so the next to last column,
Okay,
that's the total amount that a county government has to pay to its school.
so like Montgomery County is gonna pay 31 million.
What it's saying is for Montgomery County, their bill to pay to their school system is the 1.752.7.
It's the aggregate of everything.
That number happens to be 31 million more to adjust for the pandemic enrollment issue. more than had this bill not been introduced.
So, with this bill, are there some systems, because of the action in the bill, that go up and some that go down?
Nobody goes down. There's no negatives in this last column. It's all about more because you're picking, it's the greater of. The bill says, well, sorry, embedded in the math is the original calculation in the bill of the greater of 2023 or 2022.
Senator Roosevelt.
My question is actually for you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not saying I get all the math, but what is your macro concern about this? It seems
We
to
passed
kind of
it.
make sense to me.
I think it makes sense,
Uh-huh.
but, you know, we're still gonna get a call. Right, from, you're looking good, because it's zero on your check.
Right, I got no call, so I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand what the.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of us who have, I've got 23 million,
Right,
she's got
from the local, you're concerned
31.
about the local government.
Yes,
share.
yes.
Okay, I don't need you to articulate that.
Yes, yes.
You're concerned the local governments where they're gonna have to put in more are gonna be pissed off.
I don't know.
Or they'll love it, but
I don't know, I
Fair.
think,
they weren't planning on it.
Gotcha, that's all I'm trying
right,
to clarify.
yeah, this bill is,
Yeah, that's all I was trying
yes,
to clarify.
yes,
Thank you.
you got it, you got it. Did I miss it? Oh, Senator Sullivan,
As you see, mine is 41.7.
I do.
And I'm just looking at the fiscal note and the amendments. Is this, as I'm just getting this, is this a one lump sum, or is it in years?
Oh, no, all of this is pertaining to what needs to happen in 2023.
It'll only go up, it'll only go up from here. It is what the county has to put in. Yeah, and look, as Erica mentioned, they're gonna have to pay more. They have to pay more to keep things going with the blueprint. There's just not, we made that decision. The question is, at this point in the session, did they know that this was gonna happen? My county government, like all county governments, are on the verge of getting in the middle of their budget season. It's just, it's a lot to start to wrap around your head.
And this is just a temporary thing for them, because next year, when we get the real numbers, that's when it's gonna kinda hit the fan, because if their enrollment hasn't gone back up to where it was in 2019 or 20, then they're gonna pay they're gonna lose money. They're all gonna lose money, depending on what their population is, and that day when we count the enrollment.
By holding, so it's fair to say, by holding the school systems harmless,
Yep.
we are not holding the local governments harmless.
Right. Yeah,
I just want people to
Yeah,
understand
yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
happening
Yeah.
here, that's all.
that's all.
Yeah.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, that hits Dorchester and Somerset and a number of our rural counties, even western Maryland, right in the gut.
Well,
But if we
unfortunately,
don't do this legislation, they're gonna get really hit in the gut this year, more.
The school
Well, my-
systems will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just, our folks are already
If-
upset about this either way.
if by our folks, you mean your school system?
Yeah.
Right, let's-
The
Unfortunately,
the school system's upset because
Yeah.
they know what the reality is when they go to the county with their budget.
So-
They can't manage their budget without the county's part, and the county's gonna have major
Yeah,
concerns.
and this is the trick with this bill. Unfortunately, the error is made, because, you can see in this list where the double escalator was applied, it's mostly those counties. And unfortunately, if you apply an increase twice, it's gonna show up as more money, but that was an error. So that's unfortunately the problem of trying to explain this.
And I think with all due respect, some of the anticipation was that some of this had been adjusted when we voted for Kerwin. And the reality was that didn't happen.
Rachel is saying here, the shore counties are going to get what they were supposed to get under the current law.
Right.
They're just not gonna get more.
Not
Just
the
not gonna get
shore
more.
counties, the school systems in the shore, on the shore.
Correct.
The school systems.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
but if I understand what Senator King is saying, Rachel is saying, then wouldn't the county contribution be what it was expected under Kerwin?
Yes,
Yes.
but
Yes.
not what MSDE informed them of.
I got
Yeah.
that, there was a mistake.
yeah, they're gonna get more money
Yes.
from, yeah, I mean, the question is whether it's enough equalization that that it's gonna work for them.
Well, but let me push it a different way, though. But it is what they should have gotten, and it is what they should have expected to get. And the only reason there's a problem is because MSD gave them the wrong number, I think.
It didn't help, but that wrong number issue, although of consequence, isn't the driver on all of this, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I-
At the end of the
think-
day, we're holding, right?
That's right. That's right. No, because you're looking at a difference of, on Exhibit 17, the difference of the escalator amounted to 11.9 versus 159 on Exhibit 1.
Yeah.
Because of the lower enrollment, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Right. Okay, but let me push that argument, though. But
The mistake is a tiny part, the lower enrollment is the big part.
of the money.
Yes.
But from a fiscal point of view, from the county's point of view, they weren't expecting the pandemic and the decrease in enrollment.
But there has been a decrease in enrollment, and without this bill, they're going to,
You're correct.
they're gonna lose money.
I get that, but I'm just saying, I mean, not that I'm not sympathetic to people who have different expectations and have to put up money, and there were a lot of locals
Yes.
who were unhappy with how much money they had to put on
Yes.
Kerwin, but you think about Kerwin, the numbers were likely to be consistent with what the numbers were having if there hadn't been the pandemic, so I don't really, it doesn't strike me clearly that it's such a huge burden. The timing is,
Yes,
and the confusion is,
yes.
but the money and the expectation doesn't really seem to
Yeah.
me.
Senator Jackson, did you have a
I'm sorry.
question?
Actually, I'm just trying to get to the point where if, what we're trying to do with this piece of legislation is known by those trying to do this with the piece of legislation, correct? This is so the two counties or anybody's county here that has an increase, are they aware of this?
Yes, they are. Well, the county school systems are.
The
They're
school
very well
systems are.
aware of this.
This exhibit was also in the fiscal note, which was available for the bill hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, they should know that there has been talk about holding the counties harmless. But
Yes.
not holding the school systems
Systems harmless.
harmless,
Right.
right? Which inherently means you're not gonna hold you're going to not be harmless from the county standpoint.
Yep.
Right.
Senator Zucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we were to not pass this bill, then several governments would not be meeting maintenance of effort. Is that correct?
No. If you were to not pass this bill, several school systems would not be getting the greater of 2022 or 2023. There would, the enrollment count that exists today for calculating the formulas would control. So if their enrollment has gone down because of pandemic, implications or whatever, they would get less.
They would what?
They would get less. This basically kind of takes enrollment declines out of the calculation.
I see. I see.
Are you just lit up over there, or do you have something to add?
I'm just lit up.
Okay. All right,
I
well.
have one more.
The good and bad news, I'll let you finish in just a second, Erica, thanks. The good and bad news is we have 5 minutes to get to the floor.
Right.
So we are not gonna be voting on this, but Erica, do you have something to
Just
add?
the very last thing you had mentioned about the timing for county governments, because they're making their decisions soon, the final amendment for this bill does turn it into an emergency piece of legislation.
They'll be so appreciative. All right, now that, yes?
I know we have that non-public special ed school bill on the floor. We were reached out by some of the stakeholders that just wanted to put in some amendments, and before I do anything on it, can I run it by the committee real quick on what they were suggesting? Is that okay?
Sure.
It'll be like 5 seconds. So originally, we had put in for fiscal year '23 and beyond, the allocation of funding. They wanted to get it sunsetted. That way they know exactly if it's working. And we had language in there that would said each year the department shall distribute to each non-public educational program an equal amount for each child served. They want to strike that and say instead of each child served, each teacher employed by the non-public educational program. So just want to let you know what but they wanted to sunset it.
Okay, so that's an amendment you're offering.
Yeah.
Okay. Senator McCray.
I'm assuming they reporting back so that we all understand how it worked out.
Yeah, I think that should already be in the bill, right? The report, did we put in the uncodified report?
That was never final, no, that wasn't
Okay.
part of the vote.
We can,
If you sunset.
I mean, the
it-
sunset is automatically like, I mean, we'll find out how it's, but we can put
Well-
something uncodified in if we want.
I would just say the sunset is the sunset, so it takes care of itself, but I
Right.
think that us having the idea of how it made out, yeah, would do well.
Okay.
Sure. How many years before sunset?
It's just 23 and 24.
Okay.
24, yeah.
23 and 24. 23 is already
Yep.
fenced off, and this would just be for 24, and then it's sunset.
Okay. So on this amendment, is everyone in favor?
Second.
All's in favor? Aye, opposed? All right, so we can get that drafted up for the floor whenever
Yep.
that bill makes it there. What's that? Okay. All right, I think we need to go to the floor. I'm sorry. Was there a question? I'm sorry, you got a question, Senator?
Yes, we passed a couple bills out a day or two ago, and then, I know at least one was held. Just, I don't know if there's any update, or it's still held and we're gonna be maybe
We can talk
revisiting.
about that in a second.
Thank you.